Okay, so thank you for joining, and my session will be about what we are doing with cloud at SAP. We like to say we are drinking our own champagne, but the others are saying that we are just eating our own dog food. I will leave for you to decide, but basically we will start with introducing myself, and just before that, so how many of you attended my session yesterday? No one. Cool. So seems like I did some really bad job yesterday because no one wanted to attend another session with me today, but it leaves me now, all the possibilities to repeat all the same jokes as I said yesterday, and just to expect that, it will be fresh for you. So my name is Vitaliy Rudnytskiy. I was born in Ukraine, but actually I spent most of my life in Poland. My Twitter handle is Sehismundovic, and I created this Twitter handle before actually I knew how to use the Twitter, so it's really difficult for anyone to find or to remember this. Nevertheless, I'm working with SAP in the team that is responsible for Developer Center, which is developer.sap.com, and my primary expertise is in data management and analytics area. This is what I've been doing as a technology consultant for last 10 years, but not only. So everything that is related to technology is quite interesting for me, and I do live currently in Wrocław in Poland, and I assume that everyone knows where Poland is, and I'm just curious who knows where Wrocław is in Poland. Anyone knows? Anyone been there? No? Okay, then a little bit help. So it is in the very southern western corner of Poland, and the funny thing is that usually I use this picture just to show how cold it is in Poland, because you can see kind of like, the darker color, the more cold it is, and usually, I was presenting somewhere here, now first time in Estonia, and I realized that actually it can be kind of like warmer from Estonian perspective, and really just 2 days ago, before leaving my home and going to the plane, I realized that, it's better if I check the weather forecast for Tallinn, and it was plus 10 Celsius in Wrocław at that time, and then I saw -2 for Tallinn, and then I realized that I do not even know where my winter shoes are. So before running to plane, I actually had to go to basement and to check all the boxes just to find my winter shoes to be able to come here. Okay, enough about me, because I hope that you didn't come here to listen about me. I do work for big company, and the big company has their own legal requirements, and one of these legal requirements is that I ask you to read this disclaimer, and while you are pretending reading this, in a nutshell, it just says that you cannot make any purchase decisions based on whatever I'm telling you here. And while again you are reading this, I'm just curious to ask, who of you ever heard about SAP before? Wow, almost everyone. That's new, because yesterday there were like very few people, but the session was about UI, so maybe people didn't expect. So anyone of you actually worked with SAP systems? Okay. So you heard, but little worked, and this gives me still some chance, just to kind of like to introduce. So according to this 2012 market share, this is probably the latest I was able to find. SAP was and still is the biggest ERP software vendor with almost like 25% of the market share. And the company existed for 40 years, and we like to say that 70% of world transactions are going or touching in one way or another SAP systems, and if this doesn't kind of like work with your imagination, then imagine 70% of all beer manufacturers are using SAP systems as well. And if you imagine how much beer is being drunk every day on this planet, it means that we have quite an impact on what's going on this earth. But primarily we were known for on-premise systems, right? So these were huge systems installed in the customer data centers with some huge software installed on this, with some thin clients that take almost 1 gigabyte of size to download to your local machine. So in general, big, huge monolithic systems. And this is what we've been doing for last, as I mentioned, 40 years, but the world is changing, right? And this is, let's say, more or less what it cost the customer to implement the on-premise system, right? Lots of investment in hardware, lots of investment in software licenses, lots of investment in consultants who will come and, customize the system, and then this little is left for the real innovation. And this is not what anyone on the earth wants to do today. Everyone wants to move to the world where actually this money that is left for real innovation and not just spending money on something that doesn't give you real value other than just running the system. This is where everyone is heading, right? So the world is changing, and the same is SAP, right? So very few people associate actually SAP with any cloud solutions, but if we look at the cloud top application vendors, then you can see that SAP actually is used to be number 3 by the revenue. It's not number 3 anymore because we just acquired Concur. So if you summarize this revenue, or 2013, this revenue and this revenue, actually in cloud applications we are bigger than Microsoft right now. So we do know something about the cloud. I don't need to spend probably much time on this slide, but just to reintroduce some of the terms. So infrastructure as a service is actually when you go to the network and you just purchase some computing power, right? So the best example currently is obviously Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. Platform as a service is where you go, you don't need to think about the platform on which your application is running. You're just building your application and you are ready to go. And then last but not least is software as a service. This is where you just go and use some software in the cloud, and then I believe the best examples be this Google Mail or Dropbox. These are all software as a service things. And we are actually participating in all of this. We are available in infrastructure as a service, but this is primarily for private cloud. So I put the link there. If you will find this interesting, you can always go, sorry, just give me a second to find it once again, to our website, which is pretty nicely describes how modern data center works. I mean, it's really cool and interesting. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but just in case you are interested. So as I mentioned, these private clouds are primarily for running some big systems in a private cloud, but we do not. Our kind of like specialty is not in running data centers. So for public clouds, we are using partnership with Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. So basically, you can go and deploy SAP software on these clouds. We just build our own, let's say, interface, which we call Cloud Application Library, to manage these SAP instances that you are running in this partner clouds. And as you can see, some of this software is kind of like for free, just to test, to demo, and it is free in sense of our software licenses. Obviously, if you're running this on Amazon or on Azure, they will charge you for that. But what is that we really needed? So as I mentioned, we have lots of on-premise software already installed, and then we want to extend this software with some additional functionality. Or there are some cloud solutions, like as I mentioned, for example, from SAP that we want to extend. Or actually, we want to build our new cloud application. So who of you attended the session before this one? Yeah. I believe his name was Mikael. Was telling that they are working as a startup and they are developing this new cloud application for transferring money abroad, and this was a classic example where they were building the cloud application right from the beginning. They started the way many people do, and including actually SAP. You think that you just put your application with the server somewhere in the cloud and you have the cloud application, but then it happens that there are more requirements coming from managing this infrastructure, managing the system on which it is running, managing the way you are developing code. So this is where he mentioned as well that they are thinking about some platform as a service solution, and this is what we had to build at SAP as well, right? So we needed this platform as a service thing to be able to build all these different use cases, as I mentioned, either extending on-premise systems or extending some other cloud applications, or building this cloud applications from scratch. So what typically such platform as a service provides? I'm not going to mention about the infrastructure service other than, again, referring to what the presenter before me was describing. Like, they are running their service for customers right now in different parts of the world, and now they are facing this famous, let's say, cloud issue that if your server is somewhere in the US and you are the customer somewhere in Australia, then actually this response time may not be the best one, right? So at least from this perspective, as you see, developers need to know where their code is running, or at least to know if platform as a service provides either different zones where you can deploy your code around your application, or if it is providing content network management where you're running one application, but people in different parts of the world experience performance as it would be in their local zone. So this is with regards to the infrastructure services. Then you obviously have database services where you are storing, processing your data, and then depending on this database, you are getting as well different services that are coming with this database. I will kind of like explain this maybe in a few minutes as well. Then on top of this, these are the application services that are being provided by the platform, and last but not least is the developer experience. So why do I mention this? Is that basically when I kind of like was facing discussion about platform as a service for the very first time a couple of years ago, I kind of like thought, I mean, let's say you want to develop Java application in the cloud, right? So what's the problem? You just put, I don't know, Tomcat in the cloud, let's say on Amazon Web Services, and you have your platform as a service, right? Not exactly, because I mean, this is still the same kind of like the runtime environment as you have. But what platform is delivering is this whole bunch of services that you are using out of the box just because you are developing and running this software on this particular platform. So whenever you are thinking about platform, and this is again what this previous presenter was telling, is that they are at the point where they need to decide which platform to choose. And surprise, surprise, all these platforms available there are different. And what is different there is exactly what extra services this platform is providing to you out of the box. And because we are a company that is primarily working or developing software for enterprises, so we had to pick and choose services that we will be providing that are kind of like important for this particular market of software, right? So kind of like you will not find, at least right now, anything fancy there, like for example, you know, authenticating yourself through Facebook, right? Because this is not something that most of enterprises out there would do. But I know that Facebook tries to get into the enterprise market, and obviously we are curious what is going on in consumer market, so maybe at some point of time this is the service that will be provided from our platform as well. But unfortunately not for the moment, right? While some other platform providers or cloud platform providers may be making, you know, Facebook authentication already available. So one thing is about this developer experience or developer environment, and in our case we do use Eclipse for the development, right? So I just got disconnected, and why Eclipse? Because actually SAP is quite big in supporting Eclipse Foundation, right? So we are the second biggest code contributor to Eclipse among in the corporate world. So we are using Eclipse, and for example, right now I am connected to my instance in the cloud, and I have my own projects here. And just to illustrate what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about our platform as a service, but I still didn't mention anything about it. So we call it SAP HANA Cloud Platform, and this is, let's say, the login screen. So once I am logging in, I am not authenticated by Facebook or by Twitter, but I am actually authenticated by our own SAP ID service, which kind of like one of the services that are provided by Platform as a Service. And we have the same issue. Yeah, you can see that currently I am authenticated. And here I am almost in my account. I don't know why. I mean, this is the same wireless network as I have in the room, and in the room it works like this, and here it is really, really slow. So, okay. So while it is loading, what basically I wanted to show you is that you can develop using the Eclipse environment, but as well, more and more popular are becoming web-based IDs, which in our case we have as well. So currently our platform has 3 runtimes. So basically 3 kinds of applications that can be built and deployed. There, one is Java, very kind of like common in today's world. But frankly speaking, last time I wrote last line of code in Java was when I was still a student, so it was quite a couple of years ago, and somehow I didn't have to write Java code during last 15 years. But you can build and run Java applications there. You can build and run HTML5 lightweight applications there, and the one that I'm actually using the most is HANA XS. So what the hell is HANA XS? As I mentioned, there is always the database underneath your system. So let's say the speaker before me was saying that they're using MySQL database in their solution, in their cloud solution. In our case, we have currently the choice of two database systems. So one is MaxDB and another one is HANA. Have you ever heard about any of these databases? No. MaxDB was SAP database developed through last about 15 years. It was used primarily in SAP systems. For example, Deutsche Post is in Germany is running almost all on MaxDB database, so it is kind of like simple relational database. And then the other one is HANA. So SAP HANA is the database that we developed quite recently, but based on the experience that we gained from MaxDB and some other systems. So HANA is in-memory database and it is column-based. It is using MPP, massive parallel processing. So basically, this is kind of like the database that converts your raw data into the column data. Anyone worked with column databases before? The column databases allow you to shrink your data significantly comparing to traditional row-based databases. So it is about kind of like 5:1 on average compression ratio. And then it is in-memory database, which means that the servers on which it is running have huge amount of RAM, and primarily all data is stored in RAM all the time, right? So this database is written in the way that it knows that kind of like it has to perform very quickly on data stored in RAM. It is optimized for with so-called CPU cache aware algorithms, right? So it is not only about storing data in RAM, it is as well loading and storing as much of useful data in CPU cache as possible. So with every CPU cycle, you are trying to get as much information from cache as even opposed to RAM, or even worse to your hard drives, right? So we have this HANA database underneath, and then the part of this HANA database is as well the application services, and these application services are using JavaScript, server-side JavaScript, right? So I asked this question yesterday, and curious today how many of you are using JavaScript. Okay, interesting. Not that many, because yesterday the session was about UI, and in UI, obviously, everyone is using JavaScript, right? So people were laughing at my question, but I knew that once we are talking about the cloud, people are maybe a little bit more skeptical about JavaScript and are more familiar with Java. But nevertheless, as I mentioned, this HANA XS are basically server-side JavaScript that are running on top of this HANA database that is underneath this cloud. And in my case, I have two applications which I'm working on, but then the thing I wanted to just quickly do with you is to create another cloud application. And for that, we would be using the example that I used yesterday, right? So this is the bunch of the code. And let us see how quickly we will be able to do it this way, right? So it will be Topconf EE, as Chris mentions all the time, right? Because Topconf is running in different places, and then we want to create the application. In our case, it will be some, okay, it will not be the mobile application. Let's say it is the blank application. So I have 3 files created. One is the application descriptor, which actually is empty in this case. Another one is a descriptor that is defining who can access in what way our cloud application, and then index.html. Anyone doesn't know what index.html is for? Yeah, so this is the code that we used yesterday. Let me just quickly save it and keep the fingers crossed. Something is wrong with my ID service. Okay, I'll do it slightly other way. Copy shortcut. That's the other thing that is really cool about, all these live demos every time, right? Just like you sit in your room, like 15 floors above, you do it, everything works perfectly. You come down, you are in front of the audience, you start, it doesn't work. Go figure. So let me just try it one more time. Doesn't want to work. And if I will run this, okay. You know what? The other funny thing is that this year I attended some really nice workshop at KubeCon in London that was called How to Prepare Your Technical Presentation. And the guy who was providing this training, he told, never do live demos. If you want to do the live demo, fake it, let it still pretend to be the live demo, but never do the live demos. And I said, no, it's not fun if you don't do it live. But as you see, this is where the whole fun ends. Okay. Let me just do it for very last time. No. Nevertheless, what you had to see was, very similar screen like this with Hello Topconf Tallin. You click on this and you have something popped up. And this is, once again, as I mentioned, this is the application that is built using the server-side JavaScripting, and it is the one that is using the OpenUI 5, which is the open source JavaScript UI library that we developed and made it OpenScript last month. Just a few words about this OpenUI 5. So again, this is JavaScript UI library. It has a huge number of UI controls designed for responsive design, enterprise grade, which means that it supports quite a few features that are really helpful once you are using, really productive application that you want to deploy to business users, supporting most of the browsers and touch devices, uses lots of open source and is open source by itself, and I had the whole session about this this yesterday, but this open source, this OpenUI5 is a part of one of the services that is provided by HANA Cloud Platform as well. So I promised to get back to this slide. So as I mentioned, we are using HANA database underneath, which is our own in-memory columnar database, which provides the whole bunch of services. And as I showed you earlier, just by using Eclipse, I can connect to my database instance that is underneath my cloud account. And here, I can see, as it's in any other database, my catalog, with schemas and with tables and sequences and whatever I have created for my applications. So this is all kind of like very traditional, simple things, just to manage the transactions. But what is funny about this database is that it is built to support quite many other fancy services. So one is high performance analytics, because as I mentioned, this is a columnar database. It performs aggregations or some other analytic workload really quickly. It supports streaming. Anyone of you worked already with complex event processing or any applications like this, where kind of like you have data streaming, let's say from Twitter, and then you need to ask questions that are running on top of this. So this is the kind of the service that is provided by this database. It has built-in predictive, the whole bunch of predictive algorithms. So let's say if you have historical data, you can predict trends with this data, and then expose them to your application that you are building. You can have clustering algorithms running on top of this, and so on. Spatial processing, text mining processing. I will show some examples of this as well. So these are the services that are provided by our database underneath, and then the application services, support for mobile and portal, data display, collaboration, which is, let's say, the Facebook for enterprises, security and integration. And the reason why I mentioned as well at the very beginning, kind of like why we had to get our own cloud platform, is basically because we require this enterprise-grade solutions, and security is one of kind of like top requirements in there. If you remember all the recent stories, with breaks into different cloud or iCloud systems, and getting some pictures from there and so on, this is not something that we could allow to happen, in case of our cloud platform. So some more details about the services that our cloud platform provides. So one is identity. As I mentioned, it can be integrated with any third-party identity provider, like for example Microsoft. The database platform underneath, I described this in some more details already with regards of the services that are available there. Connectivity service, as I mentioned, our platform is used to build the cloud application that would allow you to connect, for example, to on-premise systems. And in this case, obviously, you need to have this secure connectivity service that is going through the firewalls and allow your cloud application to communicate with your on-premise systems. Managed document service. So here I had some examples of the applications that we built on top of our cloud solution. So one is Lumira Cloud. So this is basically the application for, this is the cloud solution for business analytics in the cloud, right? So it is using all the services that I was mentioning before. So if you saw that once I was logging in, I was authenticated by some ID provider, which in our case was actually our own. But as I mentioned, it can be any third-party ID provider for enterprises, and then we have different data and visualizations here. So, any one of you knows Polish language? No? This is an example of some survey that we run in Warsaw, in Poland. So it is in Polish language, but actually what I'm showing here is that one thing is kind of like the whole layout of this storyboard, which is stored in the document service, and then the other one is kind of like on the fly analytic calculations that are happening through these analytic services that are provided by underlying database. The other example of the application that we built for our purposes is what we call mobile documents. So I mean, it is very similar to something that you obviously have seen if you are using Google Drive or Dropbox or Box.com. It's just that in corporate world, again, we cannot use any of these public services, right? So we had to build our own just by using our cloud platform, for example, for storing or retrieving the documents. So, for example, this application this presentation that I'm running right now is not stored in the public cloud, but, for example, in our own cloud. So these are examples of the application that we built, and then last but not least is the API management, right? So this is something that the speaker before me was mentioning as well, right? If you are building the cloud application, then you need to exchange more and more data with some other cloud applications, and then this is where API management comes handy. And it was interesting what he mentioned, that once you are building the cloud application, you cannot measure or you cannot see what is happening with your application. You do not know how much resources are being used. And the thing I wanted to say that's not true. I mean, it depends on what cloud platform you choose. But for example, in our case, we know very well through monitoring and operations how much resources are being used by particular applications, how many calls to particular APIs are happening, how many resources have been used by this, and so on and so forth, right? So this is something that, for example, if you are building cloud application and you want to charge people for using your API, this is exactly the way you are doing this, through the API management of your platform. So any one of you heard about the Cloud Foundry? Okay, so Cloud Foundry is open source platform as a service, and we are participating in this as well, which would allow us to add some more runtimes to our platform as well, besides Java and server-side JavaScript. So if you are interested to try this platform, this trial account is free. It allows you to get access to 100 gigabytes of space and build your own cloud applications, deploy them, and try them. Yeah, it's just hcp.sap.com, which is hanacloudplatform.sap.com. And unfortunately, we didn't have time left to discuss some of the funny examples that actually were built by community on top of this trial or this free account on the cloud platform. But this was exactly, like monitoring Twitters or using predictive analytics of the underlying database to predict how your next Twitter follower is, or building even, some simple door monitoring system with Raspberry Pi and this HANA Cloud platform. So thank you very much for attending this session, and I saw that some people really struggling not to fall asleep, but no one fall asleep, so I really appreciate that, and once again, thank you for your attention. Okay. We are done with our time, but if there are any questions, I am available. Sure.
Question about Cloud Foundry. Do you find it's production ready? Was beta version for quite a long time?
Right. So the question about, the Cloud Foundry and if it is in production ready stage, and this is actually why SAP is joining open source projects. So whenever we see that there is an open source project that is really promising but requires this enterprise grade readiness, this is where we are stepping in, right? So this is why we joined this Cloud Foundry Foundation as one of 8 kind of like platinum sponsors, so that we want it to be production ready for full enterprise grade applications, right? So it is not yet integrated with our platform, but we are working on that to make it happening. To use the Cloud Foundry? I mean, so the Cloud Foundry is still open source platform as a service that you can need to deploy, on your vendor of choice, right? So if I would recommend Cloud Foundry, I would recommend obviously our platform and wait when Cloud Foundry will become part of this. But if you are willing to experiment, then obviously I would recommend it. If you need, kind of like this 99.999%, availability and security, then remember my disclaimer at the very beginning here. You are not making any purchase decisions based on whatever I'm saying here. Any other questions? Okay. Once again, thank you for your